Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and Michelle has got on her sunglasses because summertime is here.
That's right. So, isn't it summertime?
Only in Louisiana can it go from 30 degrees one day till 75 degrees the next, and it's going to be that way all week long.
I know. That way we have a variety. That way you can wear your sandals, still get pedicures. Ladies, you have a few days to go get pedicures and wear sandals without getting frostbitten.
Well, you know, the one good thing about sandals and flip-flops, no matter how much weight you gained over the holidays, they still fit.
Is that what you found?
That's what I've heard.
That's what you found.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's Mike Woods night. People, they go, okay, he's going to be in there because the price of gas is volatile, just like our Louisiana weather.
I hear it's going up.
Well, and we've got a new hashtag that you came up with today. Here we go. Drum roll, please. Make a drum roll. Yeah, he's a musician like CL. What's up?
Movement in gasoline prices, and of course, you know, we're still talking in the great state of Louisiana about increasing gasoline tax, which will only make the price go up, but we need to start putting some money back into our roads, and as we go through, now I will say every time we say what's up with gas, you know, crude oil has been plummeting for the last couple of days. It's dropped from 53 to 50 over the
53 to 50 what? Explain that
dollars
to our
per
listeners.
barrel. I'm sorry for those of us in the industry. Oil is sold on a per barrel basis, and what is a barrel? A barrel is 42 gallons of crude oil, and of course the price varies all over the United States depending on what refineries are refining it, but so anyway, we're those of us in the industry are anxiously awaiting to see what happens with OPEC and their curtailment of production, which if they take 1 million barrels a day off the market, supply and demand dictates that hopefully prices will go up. Of course, as they take their production off the market, those of us in the industries try to start producing more here and drilling more because our cash flow is increasing, and so it's, you know, it's a constant balancing act.
So you think that the price of oil is going to stay up, and you've been projecting that for the 2017. It's going to end up where?
Well, there's the pundits, you know, and of course everybody's expert advice is just as good as mine, which is zero. But the pundits are saying it should be 65 to 70 by the end of this year. And 75 by
barrel,
next year, yeah.
Which the Louisiana budget is predicated on.
Right now, it's predicated on $30 crude oil. So, you know, if it ends up at $60 at the end of the year, that's $30 over what the budget is based on. And for every dollar it goes up, that's an extra $12 million into the coffers of the state of Louisiana. So a $30 increase would be an additional $360 million into the coffers of the state. So
there you go. The reason he has that Southern accent is he is an authentic, 100% verified Southern oil man.
Born and raised.
That's right. And in the oil business, if you could see his shirt, it's got a little oil rig on it that says group.
There you go.
You're an oil guy. Well, today is a birthday for one of our state officials. Louisiana Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser's birthday is today.
I did not realize that. Happy birthday,
he's 30.
Billy. 30,
He's a lot younger than you.
He acts 30 sometimes.
He looks 30, and you wish you did.
Yeah, well.
And now you're a Tiger fan because you went to LSU Law School.
Yes, have a few degrees from LSU.
So last night the Tigers won the national championship.
Not our Tigers, but it was another Tigers, and it was an incredible game. Unfortunately, you know, I go to bed early, and so I made it through halftime.
You saw the replay today.
I got up early this morning, and well, actually, I got up at 2:00 and turned on my iPad to see who had won, and was very pleased to see that Clemson had won in the last second.
Yeah, I got to see it happen. Unlike yourself.
Well, you stay up late at night.
Well, I'm very young, so that's why. But how sad that you missed that because it was in the last seconds, and I'm an LSU mom, so I'm a fanatic about LSU. And don't like Alabama at all.
I understand. You know, it was the first half. Clemson just they were pitiful, and Alabama was on fire. And from what I understand, the second half, Alabama was pitiful, and Clemson was on fire. So anyway,
well, it just reminds me of Meryl Streep, an actress who the other night gave a political or just a speech. I mean, some people say it was political or wasn't. I think it is political when you start talking about politics. And she said that if you were to take all of the immigrants and illegals and others out of Hollywood, you'd be left with watching football and MMA and mixed martial arts, which she said isn't an art. So you know how many people watched that? Millions of people tuned in to watch that game last night.
I bet a lot more than watch the Golden Globes.
Yeah, I didn't see the Golden Globes.
I didn't either. I could care less about the Golden Globes.
And I could care less about people who are paid for a living to quote lines and assume someone else's identity and pretend. It's like getting paid millions of dollars to play dress up, but you're just really good at it.
Well, it's always amazed me how Hollywood has suddenly amplified these folks. For instance, when Sally Fields played the union worker, and all of a sudden she's testifying in front of Congress because of her role in a movie. And, you know, Meryl Streep had a perfect opportunity to talk about the special needs young man in Chicago that was tortured for hours, but she didn't. She had the opportunity to talk about Roman Polanski, a known child rapist who she applauded earlier at one of those Hollywood events, but she didn't. And so she takes the time to go and attack President-elect Trump. And again, Michelle, it just points to the fact that the folks in Hollywood, like the mainstream media, just don't get it.
Well, I think it's like this To America thing. There's a map that everyone has seen where L.A. is just the most solid blue. It's like its own little country over there.
Well, let's hope it stays that way. But anyway, this is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle. C.L. Bryant is traveling.
We'll be back with
Jeffrey
Adicott.
Jeffrey Adicott, a professor at St. Mary Law School in San Antonio. This is Mike Woods. We'll be back. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. with Michelle here in the studio, and we have on the phone line Professor Jeffrey Adicott, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, served in JAG for 20 years. He is a professor at St. Mary's in San Antonio. And Michelle, we have found somebody who actually has more degrees than I do.
That's right, even more degrees than me.
Jeffrey, glad to have you, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, other than the fact that you went to the University of Alabama and looking through your resume, it's quite impressive.
Well, somebody had to get an education.
I understand. How did you end up at St. Mary's? That's a great school. I have a good friend whose son graduated from law school there a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's a great law school. We are the best law school in San Antonio. Of course, we're the only law school in San Antonio, but it's a very good regional school, very strong school. And, of course, if I can do my own plug here, we're the only law school in the country that has a center that's devoted to the study of terrorism law, which I'm the founder and the director of.
Well, that's exactly why we're excited to have you on the show tonight. You've actually written books about that. One of your books is about terrorism, isn't it, that you wrote in 2003?
Yes, I've got a textbook that's in the 7th edition now. The latest edition came out of that same text in 2014, and I'll be doing an 8th edition once we get the Trump administration cranked up so we can put in all their policies on how they're dealing with national security and terrorism issues.
Well, it's so interesting because you're from Alabama, or at least you went to school there. So,
I am from Alabama, yes.
Okay, well, Senator Sessions today got the grilling of his life, going from senator to attorney general, and terrorism was on the table in some of those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I mean, I've testified before the Senate, and I've been protested by Code Pink, so I know exactly what he's going through. And these people are just, it's shameful. The accusations that they're trying to throw, it's the same old thing. They march out that you're a racist, you're this, you're that, and it's a spectacle that these people should be ashamed of. This Senator Sessions is a gentleman. He is going to apply the law. He has his personal opinions, as we all do. As I often tell my students, the law is the law. It doesn't mean it's right, but it is the law. And so he's sworn to uphold the law, which I believe he will do. He's a man of his word.
Well, and that's what impressed me, Professor. When asked, he said, I will uphold the Constitution and obey the laws of the United States, which, what the Attorney General is supposed to do. I don't know if our current Attorney General has done that, but they tried to hang him, as you said, as a racist, and of course it was quickly pointed out that as U.S. Attorney, he prosecuted and got the death penalty of an individual in the Klan who had killed an African American. And, of course, Senator Scott from South Carolina is supporting him, an African-American and a colleague in the Senate. So it's just political
Well, let's
theater.
talk. We had questions about the Muslims. Mike, what was your question that you had?
Well, the one of the senators, and I forget which one it was, asked him, are you going to prohibit any Muslim from coming into the United States? And he said, unequivocally, no. I'm not going to base entry to the U.S. based on your religious belief, but if they are questionable as far as their terrorist background, then yes, they should be excluded. But I mean, he handled himself quite well, I think.
Well, the questions
He did. He didn't gravel to these people, and again, that's not his job. It's the job of the Congress to pass legislation about immigration. The Attorney General enforces the law, and so he's going to be a fine Attorney General. There's no question about it, and so I'm glad that I think he's weathered most of the nonsense, and I look forward for a swift confirmation as Attorney General.
Well, the question about Muslims and immigration is a talking point that's bounced around even today to cause mass hysteria that the Republicans want to disallow, I think that's a word, any Muslim from entering into the United States. Now, I didn't hear Donald Trump say that on the campaign trail, but you're a terrorism expert. There is a difference between saying this religion in its entirety is radicalized versus understanding that there's a vetting process. Explain to us about the difference of that.
Well, we've had a lot of confusion about, jihad, radical Islam. In fact, under the Obama administration, it's like the Harry Potter movie. It's the word that must not be said because of political correctness and Islamophobia. The facts are the facts, though. I just published a book in 2016 entitled Radical Islam, Why? And the facts are that the use of terrorism as a tactic, the primary group that uses terrorism as a tactic are jihadists, and they have a religious view that's rooted in their view of the Quran, and that's what motivates them to kill. There's a lot of them. Now, that said, there are other categories of Muslims that do not engage in or believe in the violent verses in the Quran, because there are very violent verses that command people to kill the infidel. And then you have Muslims that adhere to Sharia law, which is another issue. So there's a lot of issues. I am very uncomfortable, and I think any immigration policy should screen individuals that pledge allegiance to Sharia law, even though you're not going to engage in terrorism, because Sharia law is the antithesis of our Bill of Rights. And in my book, I point out that the European Court of Human Rights, which is the number one international court in the world, in the Rafi case, ruled that Sharia law is incompatible with freedom. And people don't seem to realize that. Anybody that comes to this country, we're an open door, but you've got to become what we are. You have to adopt our rule of law. We don't need Sharia law in this country.
Well, see, Jeffrey, when people hear that, like Meryl Streep, for instance, when you say you have to come to this country and adopt our laws, they don't hear that. They hear we all have to be homogenized and look like old white men. And that's not what's being said here, and we can't seem to get that message through to we're talking about danger for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the ones that will kill and engage in violence and terror. Again, it's people that have no frame of reference for our liberties. For example, in Saudi Arabia, which is based on Sharia law, if you're a female, you're not picking me up at the Sharia law prohibits you from driving. Do you want that in this country as a rule of law? I don't. If you're a female, your word is only worth half of the word of a Muslim male. And, of course, I guess the dress code is a little easier because you don't have to worry about what am I going to wear today because you're wearing the same thing every day.
Day after day. Jeffrey, we're coming up on a break. We will join Jeffrey Endicott as we come back. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Professor Jeffrey Adicott from St. Mary's School of Law in San Antonio. Professor, I was curious, and I'll tell a story on myself. When Michelle said you were going to be on the show, and I said, well, what does he teach in law school? Criminal law? No, he teaches terrorism law. I said, no, there's no such thing as terrorism law, and lo and behold, there is. How did you get into terrorism law?
Well, I was in the military for 20 years. I was the senior legal advisor to all the Green Berets in the world for combat operations. So I did this stuff in the real world. And when I was in the military, I got advanced law degrees up to the Doctor of Juridical Science because I knew I wanted to teach. I like to educate. I like people to think outside the box. And so came to St.
To be the most conservative law professor in the United States.
I think I must be, because I was asked to debate Susan Herman, who is was the president of the ACLU. She's a law professor at NYU, and I debated her deep behind enemy lines, in Boston or somewhere up north.
Yeah,
and,
somewhere like New York or somewhere.
Yeah, it was quite an event because their premise is that it's all illegal. Gitmo's illegal, waterboarding's illegal, and so these are things that need to be discussed by the American people, no question about it. But too often, there are very few voices that support the what I would consider the reasonable approach, because in war there's a balance between increased security and civil liberties, and it's going to tip towards increased security. So that's just the way it is.
Well, you have military experience, so I know that you were debating her. She probably doesn't have any military experience, and I think it carries a lot of weight when you're in the military and you talk about terror or you talk about torture. But we also want to get to something that you're doing. In addition to being a professor, you also work with military personnel, still, getting into difficult things. Tell us about Christian Saucier.
Yeah, part of our mission at the center is we provide pro bono, which lawyers hate that word. It means no money. We provide free legal services and advice and work on behalf of soldiers that are wrongfully accused of war crimes or violations of law in the performance of their duty. In Chris Saucier's case, I took his case because I was very impressed with the sense of injustice that was done to this individual. So he engaged in the misconduct, but the punishment was grossly disproportionate. So that's why we're fighting to represent him and get him, some justice done. This individual took 6 photographs in 2009 of his workstation on board a submarine that was docked in an unclassified setting. None of the photographs depicted anything of a secret nature. However, this thing came to light right at the time you had the Hillary Clinton effect, where the Department of Justice and the FBI were being criticized for not really going after Hillary Clinton and all the email scandals and misuse of classified information. So they used Chris, in my opinion, as a sacrificial lamb to say, hey, look, we are serious about this stuff. And they sentenced him in 2016 to 1 year in a federal penitentiary and a fine, 36 months of probation, and then the Navy kicked him out of the Navy with an other than honorable discharge. Other sailors aboard the same ship that did this conduct took photographs of their workstation themselves on the submarine. They received what we call non-judicial punishment, a $300 fine, a reduction of 1 grade, no discharge from the military. One of them, in fact, was subsequently commissioned as an officer. So they received, for what he did, basically a very light administrative punishment. Chris was thrown into a federal penitentiary, and then the FBI and the DOJ crowed like a rooster in 2016, put out a statement saying, we have convicted this person of misclassified, blah, blah, blah.
Apples and nothing. So you're saying, from your experience, and again, we need to remind our listeners, you are not new at this. You were a lawyer for the Green Beret. We can't even imagine the top secret things they were working on. And this was pictures of his workstation, which you said to me the other day is like his desk. There was nothing in there that was top secret, and that there's levels of this.
Yeah, that's right. And other sailors that did the exact same thing received no punishment, but they had the luck to get caught in 2011. Chris's case came to, ahead 2015, 2016, right at the time that Hillary Clinton, all those issues were swirling around, the criticism of the FBI and the Department of Justice. So what they had to do, basically, is use him to say, hey, we are serious about classified stuff. Look, we just nailed this sailor. And so it's
So he's in prison right now, and his mother's been on our show. She is a friend of ours, a friend of Sean Hannity, and we're kind of all in this together. Now, you were in D.C. with the pardon that your law class had written on behalf of Christian to take it to President Obama's desk to see if he'd be willing to pardon him.
Yeah, the process is, my law students work with me at the Center for Terrorism Law, and they get great experience. We drafted up a petition for clemency, a petition for pardon. I flew out to visit him in his jail cell in Fort Devens, Massachusetts on the 3rd of January, explained to him the paperwork. He signed the paperwork. I flew back to Texas, and then 4 days later I fly back to Washington, D.C. to personally hand-deliver these petitions to the Office of the Pardon Attorney, who then will investigate it, and they'll do a process that goes to the Attorney General, then it goes to the President. There's no way it's going to be done in 2 weeks by President Obama. But we are very hopeful that with enough media attention that President Trump's transition team will put this petition on the fast track at the pardon attorney to get the paperwork up to his desk. In fact, we've got a story, I hope, coming out tomorrow in the Navy Times and the Washington Times that will talk about this great injustice that was done to this otherwise sterling military member. And again, these things don't occur in a vacuum. As we know, just Monday, the FBI revealed that Hillary Clinton's emails showed that she was compromised by foreign agents, and yet nothing ever happened to her. Nothing.
Well, the one thing that comes to mind in all this conversation, I have some pictures. I had the privilege of going out on the USS Louisiana, which is a Trident-based nuclear sub, and spending a couple of days. And I have pictures of me on the submarine that I didn't take, thank goodness.
And now they're listening, and they're going to come get you. But Jeffrey is going to, be your lawyer pro bono.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Well, we're coming up on a break. Professor Jeffrey Endicott, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army. We will have you back again, my friend. Appreciate your service to the country and what you're doing for others. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant Show. We'll be back after the break.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and we've got Michelle in the studio. And it's been an interesting news day. We've had confirmation hearings going on with Trump's cabinet, and we talked earlier with Professor Jeffrey Edicott about Senator Sessions and some of the foolishness. One of the great lines I heard this afternoon by a political commentator was the fact that, you know, if anybody had the opportunity of watching the debacle, the political show that's going on under the confirmation process. From time to time, protesters would jump up, and they were a group that were dressed in KKK outfits and shouting. And this particular commentator said, you know, it's like the rodeo clowns. When things get boring in the rodeo clowns come out to entertain, and that's what was going on in Washington today. Was the rodeo clowns were there to entertain. But the good news is that the confirmation committee is staffed by 9 Republicans and 7 Democrats, and it looks like the president will get his choices on through, and I'm sure there'll be some more political theater before it's all over with. But that's Washington, and it's interesting. You know, Cory Booker, the African American senator from New Jersey, who is a colleague and has actually co-sponsored some bills with Senator Sessions, is going to testify against Senator Sessions. And one of the things that I find interesting, and again, we keep talking about people just don't get it. You know, Donald Trump not only ran against the Democratic Party, but he ran against the Republican Party, and he ran against the establishment. He has promised to drain the swamp. And guess what, folks? He won. And you would think, you know, as Booker is being considered perhaps for a potential presidential nomination in 2020, that he would perhaps learn something from Donald Trump and realize that instead of trying to go along with the Democratic Party, perhaps if he wanted to distance himself and run against the establishment, run against the Democratic Party, that he would have a better shot at getting the nomination, and if getting the nomination, would have a better shot at actually becoming president. But instead, they're going to fall in line and go along and continue to jump up and down and have the political theater. Another interesting thing going on in Washington, and perhaps you've seen the picture that is hung by one of the Black Caucus members portraying police as pigs in the halls of Congress, and it was some art student from the congressman's district that came up with a painting, and there was a Republican congressman that was offended, and so he took the painting down and returned it to the Democratic congressman's office. And of course, they've now hung it back up and are standing by the young man, and it's you know it's all the usual arguments of free speech and First Amendments, and never mind that you know that it portrays policemen as pigs. But anyway, that's the Democratic Party that we have ongoing here in Washington D.C. But it's never a dull moment, is it, Michelle?
Never a dull moment, Mike. And we have Karen Watson coming up after the break, and you know she lives in Dallas like you do.
Yes,
She's
indeed.
been in the GOP forever. She's African American, and there just seems to be that outlandish accusations against Jeff Sessions, and to think that you have Senator Cory Booker testifying against him, and you know that's the first time a senator's ever done that. First time, and there was nothing factual. You've got Senator Scott, as you mentioned,
from South Carolina,
testifying on his behalf, who is also African American. But you know, everybody's been talking today about all of the other times that, like Bork, when Bork got derailed, and showing clips of when Ted Kennedy said that Bork was going to outlaw abortion on demand and gather up all of the children and women and lock them in cages. And it reminds me of what the left tries to say about Trump. They think that he's going to arrest all Muslims. They think if you're gay, he's going to arrest and lock you up.
Well, they actually compared, and I forget the senator that asked the question today, but they actually compared the Muslim religion to the LGBT issue implying that the LGBT folks were going to get deported just as all the Muslims as well. I mean, it's
just absurd, but people really think it. Now, you're a lawyer, so not only are you in the oil business, but you are a lawyer. You may not sound like one, but he is a lawyer.
Or want to be one.
Nonetheless, and it's not what people need to understand, and this is what we try to get our audience to get connected and engaged. And I know those are marketing words. It just means that they need to realize that they are the American people, and they need to know what laws are being made. The Department of Justice, they apply the laws, but the laws are made in Congress and in state capitals and in city councils, and people need to be aware that there's something they can do about that.
Well, and so often, and I wish, and when we have Jeffrey Adicott back on again, I would love to discuss the concept further. But a lot of people don't realize, and you hear that, well, we need to close Guantanamo, and we need to apply our Constitution to all of these foreigners. Michelle, the U.S. Constitution, when I was in law school, and I believe it still applies today, only applies to U.S. citizens. So if you're a foreign citizen, the constitutional rights that you and I have under the U.S. Constitution, they don't apply to foreigners. And so, when you start talking about waterboarding and other things, and it's violating their constitutional rights, they have no constitutional rights as a foreign citizen. So I would love to get Jeffrey's...
Well, I think the naive people like Meryl Streep, and I just have to say, I do appreciate her art. There are movies that she's made that I think are incredible. I don't like her depiction of Margaret Thatcher. I don't know if you saw that movie,
Nope.
which you never watch movies. Well, she depicted Margaret Thatcher in such a negative light. And this is a woman who ran England as prime minister. A woman who it has outdone, in a business sense, the majority of women on the planet. But Meryl Streep portrayed her in a negative light.
Well, the folks in Hollywood back years ago, as I've told you, the last movie I saw was Star Wars, and I'm still crushed that Princess Leia died. But anyway.
No, we all are still crushed. Don't say but anyway.
But those folks are here to entertain, period. I don't care about their politics. They shouldn't care about my politics. Go on the big screen, entertain me, period. And
I just think that the danger is that imaging... We know that commercials for the Super Bowl cost millions and millions of dollars for 30 seconds to flash pictures in front of you because it makes you respond. So Hollywood uses propaganda, which is something that Goebbels used during the Third Reich. Propaganda started then. So they use images, they twist history. Remember the movie The Butler that you did not see? Tried to change the story of an African-American butler who worked at the White House. Well, the truth was he was never treated badly. He was treated, especially by President Nixon, with respect. And yet they took poetic license, artistic license, and changed the narrative because it's propaganda. When you take the truth and change it to influence others, then and tell you that it's the truth, that's propaganda.
Well, and they are so skewed to the left that they're no longer in touch with reality, and I think part of the reason, and I don't know if you saw this afternoon, Rosie O'Donnell was calling for a boycott for everybody in Hollywood to take at least a month off, and perhaps the entire Trump presidency.
That's because they can afford to. What's so upsetting to me is the money that they spend on these award shows. They never take their money and say, let's do something really real. Let's not get together for the Academy Awards. Let's take the money we were going to selfishly spend on ourselves to drink and party and our clothes and give that to the poor in Los Angeles.
So instead of spending Moet, champagne, and filet mignon, actually give it to the poor.
Well, right there in Los Angeles, not somewhere else. Just change Los Angeles, the amount of money that they spend on that one award show.
Yep. As we come to the break, this is Mike Woods. We're sitting in the studio with Michelle. We'll be back with Karen Watson from Dallas and talk about the inauguration.
I knew a man, Bojangles, and he danced for you in worn-out shoes.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have our friend Karen Watson on the phone. Karen, a lifelong Republican from Dallas, Texas. Karen, it was cold this weekend in Dallas and got hot. What happened?
Well, I guess global warming took a vacation.
Or vacation came back. But, Karen is a black, conservative, Republican woman, author of 3 books. Mike, you tell us the name of the latest book.
It's actually a term of endearment that my wife uses for me from time to time. But Karen's latest book is Jackass, The True Story of the Democratic Party and Their Abuse of America. I love
exactly.
that. I love that.
It's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy. Are you you're getting ready to go to the inauguration?
I am. I'm
Good for
excited. This is going to be my first inauguration to attend.
Well, it's an exciting time. I had the privilege of going to both of Reagan's inaugurations and one where we almost froze to death. So hopefully the weather will cooperate a little better as you go. But why are you going? What makes you want to go to a Trump inauguration? I mean, we've all been told that women were opposed to Trump, that African Americans were opposed to Trump's, Latinos, and yet here an African American woman, a Southern woman, is going to the inauguration. Why bother?
And that's one of the reasons why I am going, is because the left and their narratives of who can be on this side and who can support this candidate, it's just so silly. And I think that what's most important is for, I think, every American who has the opportunity to come should come, because this is not about Trump. This is not about Hillary. This is about America. And we as Americans need to celebrate our new leader, because he's going to be the leader of all America.
Well, and we've somehow lost our civility, and I was talking about this in my Sunday school class the other day. Back during President Clinton's time in office, he came to Barksdale for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, I was part of Military Affairs Council and went out when the president arrived to greet him, and somebody said, "Well, wait, you're a lifelong Republican. Why are you there supporting Bill Clinton?" I said, "I'm not there supporting Bill Clinton. I'm there because he's president of the United States, and I respect that office, and that's why I went." But we've seemed to have lost the civility of the office, and all these movie stars and performers that, well, I won't perform, or I'm not going to sing, or I'm not going. I mean, what's happened?
Well, I think they feel really threatened, though. I mean, and Karen, you've been traveling around the country. You've spent time in California. You're a black woman. You were telling me the other day you were in the gym, and so a woman who is liberal and white just assumed that you were liberal because you were black.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they assume that because they don't expect a black person to not be a Democrat. It's almost as if I broke the code by not being a Democrat. And
you didn't get the message.
I didn't get the message.
That's what Clarence Thomas said at his hearings in 1991. I just saw a video clip of that where he said it was like a high-class lynching, and it's because he was not joining their club and thinking the way they all did. And that was in 1991, Karen.
Right.
That was 25 years ago, almost 26 years ago. What have you seen? And I think, too, we've talked a little bit about the Borking effect. I mean, to see the outlandish, inflammatory claims that the left made. I think the only thing that's changed in the past 25 years is that the way that media is today, we have an opportunity to speak up and say that's not true.
We almost have a mandate to tell the truth and to be truthful with each other, because, truth always conquers a lie, but we have to tell it. And what is so sad is that this narrative of the left that is so divisive is so opposite of what our country is all about. If they have an issue with keeping jobs here, then they ought to talk about that. If they have an issue about some of the great cabinet choices, the real issues, not the fake issues, you know what I'm saying? Then we can talk about those, but just these ad hominem attacks, because they are losing what their perceived base is. See, their perceived base is a bunch of victims. For you to be on the side of the left, you have to somehow be victimized by someone. And Meryl Streep, and I do think she's a great actress, but my gosh, that's what she's, an actress. She is not a political pontiff. She's just an actress. And for her to make those kind of claims on such an international stage about our president-elect, if that was done about Barack Obama,
oh my God, we would have been carried off in chains, called racist, called every kind of name in the book.
Well, and you've hit the nail on the head, Karen. And Hillary ran her campaign on victimization, and that's the only thing that the Democratic Party has to stand on.
And the Clintons have never been victimized. I think the thing that insults me is the hypocrisy of the left. The amount of money it costs to sit in that room with Meryl Streep. She assumes, it's this assumption that if you don't think like us, then you are wrong. And the problem is, that's not what free thinking is about. America is about having different opinions. And the intolerance and the narrow-minded bigotry of the left is what is hard to deal with. It's almost impossible, because you cannot win with a factual argument. If you start to present facts, then they whine and they're like a victim again.
Well, the audacity of these multimillionaires, you come in and walk on a red carpet in $80,000 outfits and talk about the poor as if they even know how to spell it, and act as if that they are the champions in Hollywood. I mean, God bless it. It is not a place where anyone has a moral high ground for anything.
Well, Karen, you just brought out a good point.
Shame us.
They could do a reality show. Like, if they really had their hearts in the right place and it wasn't just talk, they would really do reality shows about going into the inner cities right there in L.A. and Hollywood and changing people's lives. What if you're poor and working at the soup kitchen was a bunch of actors? I think yeah.
And come on, let's be honest. Hillary Clinton was no Mother Teresa. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they're acting as if Mother Teresa was on the ballot for the Democrats and it was Hillary's turn, and yet somehow that mean-o devil's son, Donald Trump, beat her. That is so not what was happening.
Well, it was all of us deplorables that put her there. Karen, we're coming up on a break. We want you to stay. We want you to stay with us through the break. We're on the phone with Karen Watson, the author of Jackass: The True Story of the Democratic Party and Their Abuse of America. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We'll be back in a second. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio for C.L. Bryant. And I've got Michelle and Karen Watson from Dallas, Texas on the phone. Karen is an author and an active Republican member in Texas since, what'd you say, 84, Karen?
But
I've
she
always
was only
been a
a
Republican.
mere child.
It's like saying I've always been a Texan. You know, it's kind of it's in my blood. I became a Republican before I was even old enough to vote because I
Because you had good sense.
a blessed opportunity. Yeah, I had a blessed opportunity to meet Ronald Reagan at the RNC convention when he came to Dallas in 1984.
I was there, and Lee Greenwood sang. That was a pretty incredible convention.
It was. It was. You know, it's a new morning in America, and it was very positive, very Americana, and yeah.
You know, and there are those that are, and they don't understand, but there are those that are upset because the enthusiasm over a President-elect Donald Trump, to me, seems very similar to when President Reagan became president. I mean, he made us feel good to be Americans, and I think for the first time in a long time, Donald Trump is bringing that feeling back again.
Well, his slogan, "Make America Great Again," came from Reagan.
Oh, but that's racist. Didn't you see that?
Isn't everything these days?
And Schumer tweeted out, "Don't #Make America Great Again." These people, I don't know what they're doing they're like
They're not getting elected, I can tell you that.
I tell you what, and they're losing all the time. But, you know, they criticized Reagan for being an actor. Oh, he's just an actor. We can't. Now, Reagan had run things. He was the governor of California, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But Meryl Streep is just an actress. But anyway.
And that's all she'll ever be.
But your new book,
You know?
Jackass, tell us about the book and the kind of response that you've been getting from it.
Oh, it's been wonderful. I mean, it's just been a blessing. The history in that book is buried history because what the left does, they want to make sure that no one knows their real history. They don't want people to know that the KKK was an offshoot of the Democratic Party, that the black codes came from them, that segregation and just all of the horrors when we think of race are associated with that party.
Well, and to think the last KKK member in the Senate was Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, a Democrat, but you never heard
and friend of Hillary Clinton.
Bingo.
And friend and mentor, I think is what she called, of Hillary Clinton. I mean, and that's what's so crazy is that it's so nuts to think that they have created these personas of the Clintons and Obama, and yet we on the right don't stand up for what's going on. So shame on us.
Shame on us.
Shame on us. Yeah.
Well, tell us what you're going to be doing in Washington for the inauguration.
Well, I implore all of us to let's all begin to pray for our country. I mean, like right now, because I believe that there is power in prayer, and we have a nation. This is not just about a party, but we have a nation that is in trouble. And we have a man who showed up and said he wants to be able to make it great again. And that everyone should be on that bandwagon. Everyone. I mean, so I am going and with belief that we definitely can. If we get together to make America great again, we can do the work, because it's going to take more than just Donald Trump or Sessions or Rex Tillerson it's going to take all of us. You know, Reagan had a great team. All of the great presidents had great teams, and we have to be on that team.
Well, and you're the one who taught me about Ronald Reagan. You know, you all were talking about 1984, but I wasn't a Republican. I was not even interested in politics. And I knew people were all in uproar about it. I saw interest rates drastically reduce from Jimmy Carter's astronomical rates to Ronald Reagan reducing those rates and stimulating the economy. But you're the one, Karen, who taught me about Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. You know, a lot of conservatives are afraid to have a conversation with a legislator that's of a different party. because then they look like they're compromising. But you taught me that when Reagan sat down with Tip O'Neill,
who was then Speaker of the House,
right? That's right.
And they worked out a tax deal that was monumental and basically turned the U.S. economy around. And both were criticized for working with one another.
Well, and I think the difference in Reagan and Trump is Donald Trump has been handed a GOP Senate and House of Representatives. And government working for us is the people want a repeal and replacement of Obamacare. They don't even want, most Americans don't even want the federal government in their health care, which is another story. But what do you think about that? I mean, what are your expectations in the first 100 days of Donald Trump?
My expectations are that we grow up, that we stop playing childish games, and those of us who have graduated high school begin to act like it. And that includes Hollywood. And that we get about the work and doing the business of making this great country truly great again, and being the true light of the hill in the world. And that is my hope. I mean, I am committed to doing what I can to be a really good citizen of this great nation and to help to heal what is going on in our country. When we see what happened on that Facebook Live episode of those horrible people. I mean, it's almost hard to even call them people, to abuse that man in Chicago because of the color of his skin, and to do the rantings about Donald Trump. And I mean, this is what we've become. This is where we are. This is not what we are, and this is not what we've become. We can be much better than this, and we need to begin. We need to begin, and that's where it begins with us. You know, that's the great thing about being in a country that is ran by we the people. Is we the people need to start doing the work.
Great comment, Karen. I hate to cut you off, but we are coming up to a break. Have a great time in Washington's inauguration. I can't wait to talk to you when you get back. This is Mike Woods sitting in with Michelle, the CL Bryant Show. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio for CL with Michelle, and we have on the phone with us one of our friends, Rose Tennant, from Rose Unplugged, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Rose, how are you?
Hey, hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. I found it interesting, Meryl Streep's comment that we just ultimately have to start watching football and MMA. Does anybody in Pittsburgh watch football?
Oh, no, not anybody, not at all, because the Steelers play football.
Oh.
Are you kidding? I'm like, I'll take it. Did you see the game?
Yes, I did. Yeah, great game.
I'll watch that kind of football every day of the week, my friend.
Well, you got to remember Terry Bradshaw's a Shreveport resident. So
did you know that, Rose?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of folks who follow Pittsburgh down here because of Terry Bradshaw.
Oh, man, I love Terry Bradshaw. He's awesome.
He's a good guy.
Turns out he was a pretty good actor, too. Who knew?
Yeah, he was.
And we'll see how Obama is at acting. I think he's going to play a president now that he is no longer in the White House.
Well, it's about time. But anyway.
Well, he's been playing one for 8 years. This way it won't be so
right?
dangerous.
And not very well, either.
Right?
I mean, come on. He's not going to get any kind of award for that performance.
Well, having spent 20 years in radio, what is your thought process on Meryl Streep's? I don't know what to call it.
I thought that was poor acting. I thought she was a much better actress than that. I mean, it was just so theatrical and so dramatic. And one of the things I found so disingenuous was when she talked about Donald Trump and making fun of a disabled man. And I love what Kellyanne Conway, because I know that Michelle's going to agree with me on this. Kellyanne Conway for president someday. I'll get behind that lady. She's freaking amazing. But she pointed out, and rightly so, where was Meryl Streep and the outrage over the disabled young man that was kidnapped and gagged and tortured? And I mean, it was horrid. What, did she comment on that? I mean, that kind of behavior?
And what does she do for people with special needs? I think that they haven't been held accountable, Rose. They get to say whatever in Hollywood because to them it's just reciting lines. I mean, this is a woman who, for a living, Rose, she doesn't do what you do and what I do and Mike does, prep and read. She gets somebody else, writes these lines and says, can you pretend to be this person? So for all we know, somebody wrote that speech. And the fact that she thought it was okay to criticize football and MMA. So it's okay then. You can criticize people, just not the people that she likes. You can be a bigot, but only her kind of a bigot.
Well said. That's exactly right. Oh, and by the way, everybody seems to forget, and it's funny how short everyone's memory is when it comes to Barack Obama. But you remember when he was critical of his bowling skills, and he said, it's like the Special Olympics when I'm bowling.
Yeah, said that on. Yeah, well, it's all right when the left says it,
Where was the outrage?
Yeah.
Well, I think we shouldn't be outraged by really any of it. I mean, I didn't like those comments by Donald Trump, but I think this touchy, like wearing our feelings on our shirt sleeve and everything is offensive is not productive and not American. We cannot eliminate offenses. People are people. That's not what makes America great, is when we're all walking on eggshells.
Well, and
I agree with you 100%.
And the whole concept of political correctness, where you have to be so careful, at least you offend anybody. So as a result, nobody can say anything about anything.
Well, and it's ironic. Jeff Sessions being called racist today when he took on the Ku Klux Klan in the courts, which really matters. Not making a movie about it, but actually changing people's lives, and black pastors that came out to support him today, Rose, because of the work that he's done.
Black pastors, that's right. And, and let's not forget, too, again, where the Democrats' memory is just so short. So many Democrats had such great praise for Robert Byrd, who was a former KKK, what did they call that, exalted cyclops?
Grand Wizard.
Huge. Grand Wizard, okay, and he was... he was praised by Hillary and so many other Democrats. That is a KKK. That is true KKK, and it broke my heart today when several people stood up during the hearing and yelled, "You're KKK, Black Lives Matter." And I'm looking at Senator Sessions, who is, I think you know him too, and I've had occasion to spend time with him on the campaign trail. He's just such a gentleman and such a gentle spirit, and to see his face, and I mean, I hated that they were actually accusing him of being a member of the KKK when in fact we know the Democrats have. There were in particular Byrd.
Well, and they forget, as U.S. Attorney in Alabama, he actually convicted a KKK member for killing an African American and had him put to death. So
I had forgotten that.
Yeah,
okay, that's good.
So it's one of the commentators this afternoon I was watching likened the protesters to rodeo clowns, and I thought that was a pretty good
Yeah,
analogy.
Mike wanted to throw that in, Rose. He waited this whole time because the people in the white suits that were protesting in the back, they said that if it gets boring, it's been fun because we had the rodeo clowns to entertain us. I kind of think this whole thing is appalling because, Rose, my fear is that Meryl Streep, as an American, thinks those things, believes that we're going to round up all the gays and deport them. I mean, how unthinkable is that?
But are they really that stupid? Are they really that stupid, or does it fit their narrative?
It fits their narrative of victimization.
I don't know. I do think that there's some people that really believe these things, and they have this image. Greg Gutfeld talked about it. They're afraid of their own fathers, and here they are, 60-something years old, and they remember their father, and every old white man is their dad, and they just want to rebel. And I feel like
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair when somebody calls me racist or any kind of phobic that they want to say, and I don't like it, and I think it's un-American, and it separates us when being American is being united, finding a way to unite some way.
And, the left, I mean, actually, things are quite good. I mean, really, they were until, and this is what breaks my heart as well. We had Obama, the first black president, for 8 years. He was reelected, without a doubt, reelected. And he had such great opportunity here to say to the American people from day one, we may have had our issues here. We may have had racial issues in the past, but isn't it wonderful? Look where we've come. We finally had the first black president. This could have gone an entirely different way the last 8 years. There would be no hashtag Black Lives Matter. There would be no disruptions like this. It could have gone an entirely different way, and that was all on Obama.
Well, he's done more to separate us than he has to bring us together. Rose, we want to keep you through the break. We're coming up on a break. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle. This is the C.L. Bryant Show. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in CL studio with Michelle, and we have Rose Tennant on the line with us. Rose is part of Rose Unplugged from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Rose,
which is a daily radio program that you can listen to. You can go on the internet to roseunplugged.com and listen live anywhere in the United States. So if you're in North Carolina, Arkansas, Texas, you can listen to that Yankee Southern girl, Rose Tennant.
And
Some Yanks are pretty nice people.
Rose, you've been doing radio for how long? Years and years.
She was 5 when she started.
20 years.
Yeah, I was really young.
Well, good for you.
She was 5.
You're going to the inauguration as well, I understand.
I am. It turns out I'll be hanging out with Michelle.
Oh, well, bless your heart.
Exciting.
I'll be glad to get her out of
We'll
town.
be calling you, Mike. If we get arrested, we know who to call.
Just to be sure you call before 8 o'clock at night. Why do you want to go? We keep talking to all these folks that are going, and I keep bringing up the fact that, women didn't vote for Trump, and it was just deplorable people who voted for Trump. Why would you want to go to the inauguration?
Yeah, that's right.
Especially with Michelle.
Women there. Good grief.
Speaking of deplorables.
I can't remember being this excited about a new president since Reagan, and I did help when it was the first time I was able to vote. I guess I was, I don't even remember, but
your
it
child.
was one of my first elections. I'm not going to give away any ages here, but I worked on Reagan's campaign, and I loved him so much, and I feel that way about Trump. And it's funny because it's not that I think he won't make any mistakes. I believe he'll make a lot of mistakes, but I also believe that he will always, I think he'll err most of the time on the side of conservatism. I think that he truly loves his country, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be there for this inauguration. And it would be the first one I've ever bothered to go to. So,
well, everybody's calling for protests and boycotts. I mean, Michael Moore, that epitome of a blob of flesh that speaks.
Yeah, really.
Seriously.
I think of Big Max every time I look at him. It's just, ew.
I know, and I hate to be so ugly. I think it's the things that he says that make me think of him. But, they're calling for boycotts and, not going. And he said, we need to have a demonstration. And ironically, Rose, I'm speaking to women across the country that have never been to inauguration that are going. Black women, white women, Asian women, friends of mine from California. They're all going because they want to make a stand, because we're tired of being told, Rose, we can't be conservative, that conservatives are Neanderthal haters, and that women, enlightened women, are not Republican.
Right. That's exactly right. Well said, my friend. Now, I have to give you a warning. I intend to wear my full-length coyote fur coat. It was either that or the mink, and I'm going with the coyote because it's warmer. And so that's going to cause quite a bit of stir going through the protesters, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
there's going to be a lot of fur,
I'll share with you. My sister is a veterinarian and served on the board of veterinarians there when she had a practice in Georgetown. And at one of the Reagan inaugurations, we got out of the car, and she had on her full-length mink. And she said, "Oh my gosh, they're all my clients over there. They're going to have a heart attack." And when they see me get out of the car wearing this fur coat, but fortunately they didn't recognize her.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Is it because of the fur and killing the animals?
Oh yeah. You're just supposed to wear plastic or something. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. Although they wear leather shoes, but that's a
different. Yeah. Those cows are killed humanely versus.
Or Leo DiCaprio can have 2 New Year's Eves by flying to different time zones. How is that not excess to the? It's because he played Howard Hughes that it went to his head. Is that what it was? The environmentalist?
Well, he didn't worry about his carbon footprint.
Well, they made a little Valentine card for the president. It's a little video, a montage of all the brilliance of these actors. And his was about, I'm just so impressed. Here's Leo DiCaprio, just flew to time zones, wasting carbon. And he says, I'm so impressed with the president who puts first of all global warming. That's my guy.
As he's flying his 747 to Hawaii for Christmas. Yeah,
right? Exactly. I mean, the hypocrisy, but they're above it. They are above it.
Well, the rules don't apply to them.
They don't apply. They don't at all. And there's got to be the left, and I started to say this before, and I never did finish. I don't know why, but I think it's because I'm getting old. I really believe that the left is so disappointed that they really don't have a legitimate gripe. I mean, things are going well, and we do have the first black president finally ever, and racial relations were at a good point around that time, 2008. But they need to have a victim, and if there's no victim, they will make one up, and they continue to do that over and over again, and in various ways. It's astounding to me. It's a crazy world we're living in right now. I feel bad for the younger people, the millennials and younger.
But
what do we call the ones that are younger than millennials?
Well, don't you have some hope, though? I mean, do you feel like...
I do now.
Yeah, exactly. So give us your expectation in the next 60 seconds. What are you expecting in 2017 or the first 100 days?
I'm expecting businesses to feel empowered and encouraged. I believe that we will all experience the good that will come out of that. I believe businesses and even people are spending now. They're saying that restaurants are seeing more diners come into the restaurants since the election. Businesses, I think, believe that they are going to have tax breaks. They're not going to be burdened by regulations and taxes in the future, which is good for all of us. I think that I feel very optimistic.
I participate in the Dallas Fed survey every year, and the recent survey of oil and gas folks all echoed just what you said, Rose, that people are going to spend more money, they're going to drill more wells. There's just a spirit of enthusiasm that hasn't, as you pointed out at the beginning, hadn't been here since the days of Ronald Reagan. So I'm excited about the new president.
Well, let me just tell you this, Rose. You're going to be on our show next week while you're at the convention. CL's going to interview you to ask you what you thought. How's it going at the inauguration? So just
Sounds
FYI.
like fun.
Yep.
Sounds like fun. I can't wait to see you, Michelle, finally, after all these years.
Right?
We will meet in person, yes.
Be sure you're up on your shots.
Yeah, we may not come back, Mike.
Okay.
We might call you from Europe.
Okay. Well, Rose, have a good time in Washington, and make sure that Michelle behaves. She is older than you, and so she needs to go to bed earlier. This is Mike Woods. We're sitting in the CL Bryant studio with Michelle. We'll be back after the break.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle for C.L. Bryant, and we have the current Republican PEC chairman, Louis Avallone from Caddo Parish, Louisiana, also a member of the Republican State Central Committee, which is an elected position here. Louis, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Did you survive the holidays?
I did.
No, he didn't. This isn't really him talking to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's it's good to be on the other side of it. It's just so hectic. I think Thanksgiving is one of those holidays where you just get to enjoy one another rather than all of the hubbub and the hustle and bustle of the season. We've kind of gotten away from enjoying one another during that time, so it's certainly good to have all that behind us.
Now, you're getting ready to go to the inauguration next week.
I am, and it is awesome. It's very exciting.
We've had a couple of guests on the show tonight, one from Dallas and one from Pittsburgh, who are also going. Is this the first inauguration you've ever attended?
It will be, and my wife and I are looking forward to it terribly, and
Terribly in a good way or a bad
terribly
way?
in a wonderful way, terribly in an awestruck, reverent way to be there. It's a part of our history. And it is certainly an honor for us both to be there.
Well, it's an exciting time, and it'll be something that you'll remember for years to come. It's been interesting as we approach the inauguration, next weekend, the 20th.
That's right.
I've probably had more people calling this time asking how to get tickets, where to stay, what all to do, than any other than any time.
Well, you went to Ronald Reagan.
I've been to
Louis. Mike is much older than you and I.
Yes.
So what was the first inauguration that you went to, Mike?
1980. I went to the 80 and 84 inauguration for Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, Louis and I weren't born yet.
No, y'all were still just twinkles in your parents' eyes.
Well, and there's insecurity is a concern. You have almost 1 million people who are expected. There's nearly 5,000 National Guard troops that will be deployed on that day. So, that's certainly something to be mindful of as well. But I think it certainly is a testament to our republic that we'll be able to pull this off despite all of the pressure, despite all of the threats from all of the folks who just simply can't accept the outcome of both our popular election as well as the Electoral College.
Well, Louis, you're a representative of the Republican Party, and we've talked about this tonight. We talk about it a lot, though. You said that there's people that simply can't accept the result of this election. And I think that we need to do something to help them do that, because I hear all the time, if you turn on the news, they have a misunderstanding of what this election meant, who you are as a Republican Party official. Are you a hater? Are you a racist? Do you want to gather up all the Muslims? I mean, today, the way they were talking to Jeff Sessions, specifically, a Democratic senator asked him about Muslims, insinuating that Donald Trump somehow said in his campaign that all Muslims were not going to be allowed to come into the United States. But then Lindsey Graham, who sometimes isn't really a Republican, clarified that and got Jeff Sessions. But, I mean, what do you think about that, being a Republican and being told that you're all those things?
Well, I think it's indicative of the fact is that they are, basically the Democrats and the Republicans are both two heads of the same snake. And I think that our leadership in both parties have contributed toward that perspective. And I think the narrative of who a Republican is or who a conservative is has certainly been blurred. I think when we're talking about immigration, when we're talking about smaller government, when we're talking about greater financial accountability, those are conservative principles that are rooted in our Declaration of Independence. The principles that were enumerated in the Declaration of Independence and that were the foundational principles that made our country so great. And I think if you look at it through that lens, rather than through the lens of who's pulling and who's sitting on what side of the aisle, I think this all becomes a lot clearer.
Well, that's really powerful for a party official to say, because you've got this conversation now where people don't see people or positions, they just see parties. And I love hearing you say that because I think it's persuasive. And I think you're going to make the Republican Party a bigger tent.
Lewis, we're coming up on a break. We want you to stay with us and be on the other side of the break. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio with Michelle. We have Louis Avallone, the Republican PEC chair and member of the Republican State Central Committee. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Republican Louis Avallone on the phone with us. And Louis is getting ready to go to Washington for the inauguration. Louis is also a small business owner, and we've had a couple of other small business owners on this evening, and everybody seems to be excited about the new president. How about you, Louis?
I'm terribly excited just to see the type of folks that he is hiring for these jobs. I don't think at any time in my lifetime have I ever seen the President of the United States appoint and otherwise hire folks for the jobs that are uniquely qualified in the ways that they are, with the level of expertise and the success that they have had in the private sector. And some folks might look at that and say, that's a conflict of interest. But I think for a lot of small business people and just a lot of common sense people listening today, they want who is best qualified to be sitting in each of those cabinet seats. And
well, he's doing exactly what FDR did. I mean, nobody's had a complaint when FDR appointed Andrew Mellon as Secretary of the Treasury, and here Mellon came from Gulf Oil. I mean, extremely wealthy. I mean, he's putting people who have been successful business people and putting them in positions of power. A novel idea.
Well, the neat thing is that being a businessman, Donald Trump runs the government like a business. My big passion for Mitt Romney was he was the closest thing to a businessman politician. But what my eyes have been open to is we don't need a politician at all. We got enough of that. Bureaucracy is everywhere. We need somebody from the outside who says, you've got to be kidding me. The system that you've put in place, no wonder nothing ever gets done here.
It ain't working.
Well, Lewis, I want to talk to you about something. I've got a beautiful box in front of me, refreshingliberty.com. Make America great one box at a time. Making America great one box at a time. Tell us about this.
Well, this was a special project right before the election that we thought to create what we're calling a combination of a Tervis tumbler, except our Trumpler has all of the presidents. So we have all 45 presidents.
Does it have red hair and a tan? Oh, I'm just kidding.
It looks fantastic. And so folks can go to refreshingliberty.com and they can purchase them right there online. And we had about 500 of these before the election. We just knew that he was going to win. And fortunately, we were right. And so we have a great supply of them, and it's basically a portrait of every president. So it's an educational tool for children as well, and it's got a nice lid and straw, and made right here in the USA.
Well, and you have a passion for children. So you're a party representative. You know, the show isn't on just in Louisiana. So there are GOP officials in every state that's listening to us. And we've heard some of our guests tonight that were concerned about the next generation. But you have small children at home, so this has been on your heart for a while. And like I noticed, like Benjamin Franklin, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Ben Franklin, 1748. So you're putting together a whole program to educate the next generation because you've noticed that there's a lack of understanding what it even means to be an American.
Yes, and actually on President's Day, on February 20th, we'll be launching our big site, which is conservativeground.org, and within that we have an entire program called Conservative Kid, and part of that is that we want to inspire children to learn conservative values, not necessarily about Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or Independent, but about the conservative values that are explained and enumerated within the Declaration of Independence. And so, yes, and we also, Michelle, we also have a CD that is, you can also purchase that online. You can also go to the iTunes store, and that CD is called Freedom Sings, and it is by conservative, so you can search for it either way, Conservative Kid or Freedom Sings.
S-I-N-G?
Yes.
Freedom Sings, yes. And what it is a collection of all of our favorite patriotic songs, going back, to the actually to the Revolutionary War, and like Yankee Doodle. And so in that, we also have a narration from what this grandfatherly cowboy, and he tells the story.
What you're talking about? A grandfatherly cowboy.
Hey, he's got a great voice. We probably should have called him. I don't know about the grandfatherly part.
Oh, yeah, six times grandfather.
Well, he's got
a great voice.
Nobody's
ever said that to him before.
I got a voice for radio.
There you go.
A face for radio and a voice. Never mind.
Whatever.
For mime.
So the CD is also for children, and it's really neat. If you get a chance, you can go onto iTunes. Again, that's Freedom Sings by Conservative Kid, and you can sample a few of those songs and the narrations. And if you like it, then obviously you can purchase it.
One Facebook page that all of this information?
Well, I went to the website www.refreshingliberty.com, and it brings up the CD as well as the what do you call it, the Trumbler? I like that.
Yeah, the Trumpler.
Trumpler.
Right. How many do you want to buy? Mike wants to buy a couple of those.
Hey,
I can go right here, and it says here that after $5, my shipping is free.
There you go.
Well, Lewis, thank you for being on the show. Have a great time in Washington. And this is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for CL. CL will be back in the studio live tomorrow night.
Live and in person.
And as we prepare for the Obama farewell tour, I think it's only fitting that he's going back to Chicago, the murder capital of the world. 762 people killed in Chicago last year, 63% increase from the 468 in the previous year, and almost double the murders from 2014. and you now have an activist, an anti-crime activist, Father Michael Flegger, who's saying we have a state of emergency in Chicago. When you have a fire or a tornado, they send in federal funds, and it's time to get involved. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, and they had that horrendous race,
Chicago's a great place.
Well, that was last Wednesday, I guess it was, and definitely race was involved there, and it took so long for the president to make comments about it. So we'll see.
Well,
what
look who is the
Chicago.
mayor of Chicago, his buddy Rahm Emanuel.
I know, but we'll see if he addresses any of the real state of Chicago. You notice he's not moving back there.
No, well, he's going to stay in D.C., but that's not a whole lot safer.
And he's building
either.
a wall
around his house.
around his house.
Well, that's different. Liberals can say one thing and do another. If you haven't figured that out by now,
well, and they're
Michelle.
the ones that are sad because people in Mexico won't have jobs from American companies.
Well,
they can always start to
I
make
bet they
cars.
use some Mexican bricklayers to lay the wall around his house. So, that ought to take care of that.
That'll offset that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go there. I just think that if you love Mexico, then go move there and help stimulate that economy. America can be multiplied around the world. Just apply our principles. Instead of just trying to come here, change your own country and make it a capitalistic society. But you're going to have integrity in government. There's going to have to be honesty, hard work.
And have you ever seen a president-elect have more impact on business? I mean, already we have Carrier, we have Ford, we have GM. Everybody is now suddenly afraid that they're going to be tweeted and be considered anti-American. And so we have – the man's not even assumed office yet, and he's already doing great things and providing jobs.
And the way that the media shapes it, when you don't – it's not that we're paying those companies to stay here. We're reducing the amount of money that we're seizing from them in taxes. Taxes are not a good thing. The lower the taxes, the better. Smaller federal government, the better.
Well, and I've said many times, the money I make is not the government's, it's mine. And
that idea is only American, because in other countries, people don't have that idea that they own what they make. That's why we came here and created this experiment.
Well, it's going to be exciting times, and I can't wait to understand you're going to be in Washington for the inauguration, and I'll be back on next week for a couple of shows as y'all prepare to go to Washington. But anyway, it's been a fun night. Appreciate all the guests. Appreciate the listening audience, and as I always say, I appreciate the men and women that serve our country. I appreciate the men and women that serve both in the police and fire department, and this is a great nation we live in. I'm proud to be an American and proud to be a part of it. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. I'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
And to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond will never be torn.